So we're now going to talk about how much do you pay your employees when they're coming in? How much do you pay someone to actually, start doing the work, start doing the cleaning for you? So here's what I'm going to say, and everything I'm going to tell you is going to be based solely on my own experience in business. When you're deciding how much you're going to start someone off, or how much you can afford to start someone off, or how much you can afford to pay to get work done, that decision takes place way before you're ever in an interview interviewing someone for the position. That decision is actually made when you're building up the proposal, right? When you're looking at the numbers, you're building up everything, and you're getting ready to submit that proposal over, right? Once you figure out this is the exact minimum that I could pay someone, um, based on our company culture, we're not going to go, we have our standard and we're not going to go any lower than this. And by the way, your standard could be whatever it is, right? Ours isn't minimum wage. Yours may be minimum wage. It doesn't matter. The point is that you have a floor that you don't go underneath, whether you want to as a company or whether you can't legally. There's a floor that you can't go underneath. But on the flip side of that, there's a ceiling that you don't go above, right? And you don't go above it for that particular role, okay? So once you know those numbers, as well as the other things that goes into the proposal, you package everything up real nice. You send it over to your prospect. Your prospect takes a look at it. Prospect either signs it, sends it back, or they counter you, and then you guys start negotiations. That's a completely different video. But let's say they take it, sign it, you look at it, everything's still all good. You sign it, send them a copy. Now you two are now officially in business together. Okay. So you move on, you start your interview process. You start your interview process, you're bringing people in. Now here's the other thing, right? Before we move too far into the interview process, the reason why, and I just want to make myself clear, the reason why you want to have established the floor, right? The amount that you will not go below, and then the ceiling, the amount that you won't go above. The reason why you need to have those things established is because that cushion in the middle, that cushion could be used for a lot of different things. But for the sake of this video and to keep things simple, let's just use it for any step raises, right? That may happen. Just like you or me or whoever, when you get a job and you figure out what you're starting off at, the next question is, okay, well, when do we get how's the raises work? Okay. The people who you're going to be hiring in to come and work for your company, they're no different. They're going to want to know when they can expect to be paid, how much they're going to expect to be paid, and when or if there are any raises that are coming in, when those things are coming. They're no different. They're going to want to know all those things too. It's better to go into the interviews, and it's better to hire people already armed with that information. So that way, you have something established. That way you're not, you don't feel like your back's to the wall. You already have numbers written out. People can see it. They can look at it. And it just makes things that much more easier. Now you can take that time rather than trying to defend or negotiate, and you can take that and work on other things. So it's better to just have the pay scale structured ahead of time. Okay. Now that's all about the pay scale in a nutshell. Okay. The other thing is this is something that I had to learn, right? I was already about 3 or 4 employees in before I started to realize everyone doesn't value the same thing, right? So what I mean is some people value money, some people value time, some people value work-life balance. Everyone's not going to value the same thing all the time, right? And then sometimes in people's life, they may value this and then it shifts and values that. So you have to take those things into consideration when you're doing your hiring, when you're in your interview process, when you're letting them know about the company culture, and then also you are trying to find out whether or not that person is going to be a good fit within your company culture. So I'm going to give you really quick 2 scenarios, right? 2 scenarios on how I would go about this situation, right? Well, it's one scenario, two different people. So this is how I go about this specific scenario. Let's say, for example, that I'm hiring, right? I'm hiring W-4 workers, and I have 2 really good people back to back. They both have the same. They're both equal across the board as far as experience. They want the job. They're good at the job, so on and so forth. So person A can work Monday through Friday. They can never work a weekend, right? They just can't. They can't do it. They have other things set up in their life, and it doesn't permit them working on weekends. Okay, completely understandable. I get it. Person B works 2 jobs during the week. They can work any weekend, doesn't matter. And also, not only can they work a weekend, but they can also work as an on-call person during the week. Sometimes they don't have work at their other jobs or whatever. They're willing to come in and work on call. If I'm presented with that situation, right, and I have positions to fill, I'll hire both of them. But the person who is able to work the weekends and and potentially be on call, that person, granted that these two people are equal across the board, that person B, is going to be more valuable to my company because of their flexibility. Here's why. If they're working on the weekends, typically our weekend accounts are reserved for our 1 day a week accounts. We typically like to do those on the weekend unless the customer specifically says, hey, we want to have this done on a Wednesday or a Thursday or whatever, right? We typically like to reserve those for the weekend. So in order to make things, let's just say it was 5 accounts that they had to work on the weekend, right? These are really small accounts. They're usually 1 day a week accounts only really take an hour, maybe an hour, it's 15, 20 minutes. It just depends, right? This is the reason why they only need service once per week, because they're small. They don't take up a lot of time. But let's say they're doing 5 accounts. They are now moving around, hitting 5 accounts. So they're learning the layout of 5 different buildings. They're learning how to disarm and arm 5 different alarm codes who may have 5 different companies, and they're not all the same. A lot of the times they are, as far as the way to disarm them, but sometimes there's different. We have one account right now where it's completely different than any of our other alarms, the way we disarm those. So they're learning they're learning the layout, they're learning how to arm and disarm. They're responsible for 5 different sets of keys, and they're able to come in and work on call during the week. That person is going to be worth more to our company than the person who's only working Monday through Friday at maybe a larger building, right? Larger buildings are always going to be easier to staff. They may not be as easy to learn as far as the layout goes, but they're going to be easier to staff because people aren't going to want to keep driving around to multiple locations. They'd rather come to work, park, get out, do their job, and then leave. That building is always going to be easier to staff than 5 other locations that people have to drive to. Okay, so with that said, that person, they know more. And 9 times out of 10, if they're willing to come in and do a walk, or they're willing to come in and be on call for one of our larger buildings, then I'll say, okay, we'll now train you to where you can come in and we'll show you the layout of these bigger buildings. The expectations are always going to be the same. Each customer is going to require something a little bit different, but it doesn't matter. They all have kitchens, they all have bathrooms, they all have trash, they all have recycle. Most of them want you to take them out, some don't. And you clean a table the way you clean a table, you take a trash out the way you take a trash out, so on and so forth. Like, it's all pretty much going to be the same. The biggest learning curve is learning the layout of any new buildings, especially bigger buildings. But if this person on the weekends already showed me that they can easily navigate their way through 5 different buildings and that they're trustworthy with all of the keys and codes, so on and so forth, it's not going to be a hard transition for me to show them the way to get in and navigate their way around the building. This person is going to be more valuable because this person knows all of these accounts and they're willing to be able to be on call. Whereas the person who's working the 5-day-a-week account, they're not willing to be on call and come work on the weekends because they told us at the point of the interview that they just couldn't do it. They can't come in and work on the weekends. Another reason why this person is going to be more valuable, and this situation has actually happened, right? Let's say something comes up in their life. They're still working their 2 jobs during the week. They still, but now instead of working the weekends, they can only do things on Sunday, right? Yeah, if I want to do things a little different, I can definitely put them in on Sunday, but that goes against what we do. We reserve our Sundays for for our inspections. We're only going to do inspections on those particular days. But the person who with this person now, person B, is available Sunday. They already know 5 different accounts. They already know these other accounts over here because they've been willing to work on call. So when people call out, they go in and they do those. All I have to do now as an owner is tell my operations manager, fill those other 5 spots that this person just left. The person who just left, person B, is now an inspector. We give them a bump in pay, and they're able to go in and inspect all of these different accounts. This is why this person is always going to be more valuable, and I'd always end up paying a person with that situation more than I would pay someone who is stuck to only working a certain amount of days. It all comes down to value. Because that is it for today's video. Like I say, in the game of business, spectators are only going to watch, but hustlers will actually get involved so they can win. Guys, I'm always dropping jewels. Just make sure you're in position to pick them up. You do that by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Once again, my name is Marcus Crockett. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.